Explaining a concept is way harder than answering a multiple choice question about it. You're wondering if you're going to pass. Pass away? Yes. Pass this exam? Maybe. Look, I have tutored hundreds of test takers, and those who pass the test all have something in common. It has nothing to do with practice test scores, because every practice test is different. Some are hard, some are easy, some have good questions, some have shitty questions. I can't stand here and say to you, oh, if you're averaging 80%, that means you're going to pass. Plus, the exam itself is actually scaled, right? So meaning on an easier version of tests, maybe you need like 80% to pass. On a harder version, maybe it's like 65, 70. So putting aside percentages for a second, the thing that all those test takers had in common is that they could explain or teach the content out loud to somebody else. So what I mean by that is with no notes, just off the top of their head, going like they actually knew their stuff at a deep level, no bullshitting, could actually explain it and simplify it enough to get somebody else to understand. So this makes a lot of sense because explaining a concept is way harder than answering a multiple choice question about it. So at Hopkins, Johns Hopkins, they used to teach surgeons by the method of see one, do one, teach one, implying that teaching is the ultimate form of mastery. When you can explain it out loud to somebody else, that means you really know your stuff. So, for example, what might this look like? Well, you know what? Let's do it live. I have an idea. Let's do it live. Why don't we put up a random topic and I'll see if I can just go do it. So here we go. Okay, great. SIM flood. Okay. So in cybersecurity, there's something called a denial of service attack. And denial of service attacks, they don't try to steal data, they don't try to manipulate data, they actually try to knock systems offline. So a type or a form of denial of service attack is called a SIM flood. So it's called a SIM flood because it takes advantage of something called a TCP three-way handshake. More on that later. All that means is that we have two systems that want to communicate with each other. The first computer will send a message with a request with a SYN flag set. That means they're saying, hey, do you want to synchronize with me? You want to talk to me? The second machine, when it receives it, is going to respond with, yeah, I acknowledge that you want to talk to me, and I want to talk to you. And by the way, do you want to talk to me? This is a bidirectional communication. And then it's a three-way handshake, right? So there's a third step, which is the final act. So all of that background is to say the TCP three-way handshake gets abused in a SIN flood when a machine, say this one is what the attacker wants to knock offline, so this is our victim, they're going to send a whole bunch of SIN requests to this machine. And it's coming from different sources because usually a SIN flood is a distributed denial of service attack, and these are all SINs, a whole bunch of SINs over and over and over again. And why this makes sense that this computer gets knocked offline is because they get the SIN request, they respond with the SIN ACK, and they reserve a little bit of memory for that final ACK. But guess what? It never comes. So their memory sort of builds up and then crashes because it's full, waiting for that final act that never comes. So, okay, I'm going to stop the role play for a second. Do you see how many layers of information you actually need to fully understand a SIN flood? I categorized it in this like big category of denial of service attacks. I made one even larger categorization by talking about the CIA framework. I'm making connections across the content, and then I could get deep and technical into actually what was going on. That is how you know your stuff. Now, you can't do this for every single piece of content on the exam or in the exam outline, right? You'd be studying forever if you really kind of understood things at that deep of a level. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to show and put on the board all of the key topics, the most testable, important topics that I think you have to be able to teach or explain out loud. And if you can do that, you're in really good shape to pass this exam.